In early 1839, the Mormon people were forced to flee Missouri after years of rising tensions and violent conflicts. Missouri Governor Lilburn Boggs issued Executive Order 44, or more commonly known as the Mormon Extermination Order, demanding their removal or their destruction. With no other choice, the Saints were forced to cross the Mississippi River into Illinois, leaving their homes, their lands, and their livelihoods behind. Quincy, Illinois, became a critical refuge. The citizens there, deeply disturbed by the treatment of the Mormons in Missouri, welcomed the refugees with welcomed arms, offering food, shelter, and compassion. But even as the main body of the church found temporary peace, the Mormon leader, Joseph Smith, was still currently imprisoned in Missouri along with a few other key church members. Meanwhile, church member Israel Barlow went ahead of the main group further into Illinois, looking for a more permanent home. His journey led him to a land agent named Isaac Galland, who owned a very large tracts of land in a region known as Commerce. Seeing an opportunity, Galland reached out to Mormon leadership, offering them the land in Commerce as well as some more acreage on the other side of the river in Iowa Territory. Desperate for a place to settle, the church leaders purchased the land, and soon the Saints established their new community. By May of 1839, after months of imprisonment, Joseph Smith and other church leaders managed to escape Missouri under an agreement with their jailers. Weary and weak, they made their way to Commerce, where Smith renamed the settlement Nauvoo, a word meaning to be beautiful. The reality of their new home was anything but. The area was an undeveloped swamp riddled with disease. Malaria, cholera, and typhoid spread quickly, afflicting many of the new settlers. They drained the swamps, they built homes, and they transformed the landscape. Nauvoo quickly grew into a thriving city, the one that would become a symbol of both prosperity and controversy in the upcoming years. Under Joseph Smith's leadership, Nauvoo flourished, becoming one of the biggest cities in Illinois, boasting a population rivaling that of Chicago. A grand temple was designed, commerce thrived, businesses flourished, and cultural institutions took root, making Nauvoo a beacon for converts across the country and even overseas. However, with growth comes tensions. The rapid expansion of the Mormon community, coupled with its political and economical influence, unsettled many non-Mormon residents in Hancock County. The Nauvoo Charter, issued by the Illinois legislature, provided the city with an unusual amount of autonomy. This special status fueled suspicion and resentment among outsiders, who viewed the Mormons as a separate, powerful entity beyond their control. Within the church, disagreement started to arise about political and doctrinal issues. Polygamy, which Smith had introduced to certain church members in secret, created deep divisions among the leadership and the membership. Some, like William Law and William Marks, opposed the practice, seeing it as a dangerous deviation from traditional Christian morality. Others, fully loyal to Smith, embraced it as a divine commandment. John C. Bennett, who was a close ally to Joseph Smith and had a lot to do with the early government of Nauvoo, soon also became disillusioned. Initially serving as Nauvoo's mayor and general of the Nauvoo Legion, Bennett was instrumental in gaining Nauvoo its legal autonomy. However, when his own moral failings and illicit behavior came to light, he was then expelled from the church. Bennett turned against Smith, publishing exposés that painted the Mormon leader as a corrupt theocrat ruling through deception and coercion. He went even further, accusing Smith of conspiring to assassinate Missouri Governor Lilburn Boggs, in which Bennett wrote, "In 1841, Joe Smith predicted or prophesied in a public congregation in Nauvoo that Lilburn W. Boggs, ex-governor of Missouri, should die by violent hands within 1 year. From 1 or 2 months prior to the attempted assassination of Governor Boggs, Mr. O. P. Rockwell left Nauvoo for parts unknown to the citizens at large. I was then in terms of close intimacy with Joe Smith, and asked him where Rockwell had gone. 'Gone,' he said, 'gone to fulfill prophecy.' Rockwell then returned to Nauvoo 1 day before the reports of the assassination came out. Smith and his supporters denied Bennett's account. This allegation intensified calls for Smith's arrest and added fuel to the already growing anti-Mormon sentiment in Illinois and beyond. As tensions over Smith's leadership grew, William Law and other dissenters broke away, forming their own sect of Mormonism, and established the Nauvoo Expositor, a newspaper aimed at exposing Smith's alleged abuses of power. The publication of its first and only issue in June of 1844, which denounced polygamy and called for a reform, led to a faithful decision by the Nauvoo City Council under Smith's direction. The Nauvoo Legion marched into the office, destroyed the printing press, and burned every copy that they could find. This act of suppression was seen as a direct attack on free speech and became the catalyst for Smith's arrest and eventual assassination. With hostility at an all-time high, opposition groups, both local and statewide, called for Smith's removal by any means necessary. The Illinois state government, pressured by growing unrest, issued an arrest warrant for Joseph Smith. Some people didn't trust the law to follow through on this arrest. Thomas Sharp, editor of the Warsaw Signal, wrote, "We hold ourselves at all times in readiness to cooperate with our fellow citizens, to exterminate, utterly exterminate, the wicked and abominable Mormon leaders." Joseph and Hiram Smith both went to Carthage, Illinois to stand trial, believing they would be protected by Governor Thomas Ford, who told Smith in a personal statement that, who pledged his faith of the state to protect him while he underwent a legal and fair trial. However, on the evening of June 27, 1844, a mob of over 200 men stormed the jail. Armed with muskets and faces painted black with wet gunpowder to conceal their identities, overpowered the guards and burst into the room where the Smith brothers were being held. Hiram was shot first, collapsing to the ground with the words, "I am a dead man," probably said a little more deathy. Moments later, Joseph Smith used a pepperbox pistol that was smuggled into the jail and was believed to have shot and injured 3 people who were currently attacking him. Joseph then attempted to jump out the second-story window, but before he was able to, he was shot 2 times in the back and then 1 time in the chest before falling to the ground, and more men shot him on the ground. His last words were believed to have been, "O Lord, my God." The death of Joseph Smith left a power vacuum within the church, leading to a heated succession crisis. Several leaders, including Sidney Rigdon, James Strang, vied for control, but ultimately Brigham Young was the one who was the most dominant. Under Young's guidance, the Mormons prepared for an exodus westward, recognizing that their position in Illinois had become untenable. In response to the growing anti-Mormon violence, the Illinois legislature repealed the Nauvoo Charter in 1845, stripping the city of its self-governing authority. Without legal protections, the Mormons faced increasing attacks. Groups of vigilantes, emboldened by the lack of government protection, launched what had become known as the Wolf Hunts, harassing, burning homes, and terrorizing Mormon families. By 1846, the situation had reached a breaking point. Brigham Young organized the mass departure of the Saints, leading thousands across the frozen Mississippi River in the dead of winter as they moved westward. As they moved westward, the Whistling and Whittling Brigade, a group of young Mormon boys armed with knives and whistles, helped maintain order in Nauvoo by intimidating anti-Mormon agitators who remained in the city. The final confrontation came in September of 1846, when anti-Mormon militias launched a full-scale assault on Nauvoo, bombarding the city with cannon fire. Weakened by months of suffering and lacking strong leadership, the remaining Mormons surrendered. Forced to flee, they crossed the river into Iowa, leaving behind their once prosperous city. The Mormon exodus from Nauvoo was not just the end of their time in Illinois, it was also the beginning of a new chapter in their history. Forced from yet another home, they turned their eyes westward, seeking a land where they could live and worship in peace. Through hardship and sacrifice, they forged a path to the Salt Lake Valley, where they would build a new Zion in the desert. But Nauvoo, once a thriving city of faith and resilience, remained a ghost of its former self, its temples desecrated and its streets abandoned.